You've got to be kidding me. That was the first thing I said when Mason Reed stepped out of the truck. Not loud enough for anyone else to hear. Just loud enough for my own stomach to drop like it already knew the weekend was ruined. I was standing outside this cabin in the middle of Colorado, holding a duffel bag, pretending the cold air was the reason my hands felt stiff. It wasn't. It was him. Mason looked older than the last time I saw him. Broader. Quieter. Dark hoodie, faded jeans, one hand around the strap of his backpack like he didn't want to be there either. For half a second, his eyes found mine across the gravel driveway. And there it was. That same weird punch in my chest. The one I hated. Because Mason Reed wasn't supposed to still affect me. He was supposed to be some stupid high school memory. A name I rolled my eyes at. A guy I told myself didn't matter anymore. Except my body clearly missed the memo. Ethan. Noah turned beside me, grinning like he had just done something helpful. You remember Mason, right? I almost laughed. Remember him? I remembered him leaning against lockers with that lazy smile while his friends laughed. I remembered him calling me quiet boy, like it was harmless. I remembered pretending it didn't bother me, then going home and replaying every word like an idiot. Yeah, I said, forcing my face to do something normal. I remember. Mason's jaw moved slightly, like he wanted to say something. He didn't. Of course he didn't. The others were already pulling coolers out of the back, arguing about who forgot the firewood, who packed the beer, who claimed the best room first. Normal weekend stuff. Guy stuff. Loud, dumb, easy. I tried to focus on that. I told myself I was 24 now. I had rent, clients, taxes, and a half-broken laptop waiting at home. I was not going to let some guy from high school make me feel 17 again. Then Mason walked past me, close enough that his shoulder almost brushed mine, and my chest tightened anyway. He smelled like cold air and cedar soap. Annoying. Completely annoying. Inside, the cabin was bigger than it looked from the outside. Wood floors, old leather couch, a stone fireplace, windows facing miles of dark pine trees. It should have been nice. Peaceful even. Instead, I was counting exits like a dramatic idiot. Room check, Jordan called from the hallway. 2 upstairs, 1 downstairs, couch in the living room. I'm not taking the couch, Noah said immediately. You snore like a dying bear. That was one time. It was 3 states ago, and I still remember it. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I was watching Jordan come back with a face that made my skin prickle. Bad news, he said. One of the rooms has a leak. Bed's soaked. I looked at him. Then at Mason. Don't say it. Please don't say it. Jordan pointed between us like he was solving a math problem. Ethan and Mason, you guys can take the downstairs room. It's got a queen. Figure it out. The whole room kept moving around me. Bags dropped. Someone opened a bag of chips. Noah shouted about needing Wi-Fi. But I just stood there, staring down the hallway. 1 room. 1 bed. With Mason Reed. Mason finally looked at me again. This time, he didn't smirk. He didn't make a joke. He just looked almost as trapped as I felt. And somehow, that made it worse. The downstairs room was at the end of the hall, right next to the back door, which felt unfairly symbolic. Like the cabin was giving me an escape route I still could not use. I pushed the door open with my shoulder and stopped. The room was small. Too small. 1 dresser. 1 lamp. 1 window with a view of the trees. And right in the middle of it, 1 queen bed with a plaid comforter folded at the bottom like it was proud of itself. Mason stood behind me in the doorway, close enough that I could feel him there before I heard him breathe. I can take the floor. We both said it at the exact same time. I turned. He blinked. For 1 stupid second, neither of us moved. Then Mason looked away first, rubbing the back of his neck. Sorry. That word landed weirdly. Not because it fixed anything. It did not. But because Mason Reed saying sorry in a quiet room, without anyone watching, felt like hearing a song played in the wrong key. I dropped my bag by the dresser. It is fine. I will take it. Ethan. My name sounded different in his voice now. Softer than I remembered. I hated that I noticed. I am serious. I do not mind. Congratulations. I pulled my hoodie sleeves over my hands. Neither do I. His mouth almost moved like he wanted to smile, but he stopped himself. That bothered me too. Old Mason would have made some joke. Something easy and sharp. Something that made everyone laugh and made me feel smaller. This Mason just stood there looking uncomfortable in a way that almost seemed real. I unzipped my duffel too fast and started taking out clothes I did not need yet. Socks, shirt, phone charger, anything to avoid looking at him. The silence got loud. Outside the room, the others were yelling about pizza rolls and whether the cabin had a working speaker. Inside, it felt like someone had turned the volume down on the world. Mason stepped in and set his backpack on the chair by the window. I did not know you were coming. My fingers froze around a folded t-shirt. There it was. The first thing he had said that was not about sleeping arrangements. I kept my back to him. Noah invited me. Yeah, he told me last minute. You sound disappointed. I meant it to come out flat. Maybe even a little mean. Instead, it came out too careful. Mason was quiet for a second. When I glanced over, he was looking at me like he was trying to decide how honest to be. I am not disappointed. My throat went dry. Stupid reaction. Completely stupid. Then what? He looked down at his hands, flexing them once before stuffing them into his hoodie pocket. Surprised. I let out a short laugh that did not sound like a laugh. Relax. I will try not to ruin your weekend. His eyes came back to mine fast. That is not what I meant. The way he said it made my stomach twist. Too quick. Too serious. Like he actually cared that I believed him. I hated that too, because it was easier when I could just put him in the same box I had kept him in for years. Mason Reed. Bully. Popular guy. Bad memory with nice shoulders. Done. Simple. Except nothing about him felt simple with him standing in that room, looking at me like my opinion of him mattered. I grabbed my charger and moved toward the outlet near the bed. He reached for it at the same time, holding out an extension cord he must have pulled from his bag. Our fingers touched. Barely. Just knuckles brushing. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth thinking about. But my body reacted like an idiot. Heat climbed up my neck, and I pulled back too fast. Mason noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed the worst things. But he did not tease me. He just plugged the cord in himself and set it on the nightstand, leaving the side closest to the door empty. You can take that side, he murmured. Easier to leave if you need to. I stared at him. The words were simple. Almost nothing. But something in my chest tightened anyway. Because he remembered. Or maybe he guessed. Either way, it felt too specific. I looked away first this time. Thanks. It came out quieter than I wanted. Mason nodded once, then stepped back toward his bag. The room should have felt less tense after that. It did not. It felt worse. Because for the first time all weekend, I was not just thinking about the Mason who used to make me feel trapped. I was thinking about the Mason standing 3 feet away from me, making sure I had the side of the bed closest to the door. By the time dinner started, I had almost convinced myself I was handling it well. Almost. I sat at the kitchen island with a paper plate balanced on my knee, eating overcooked burgers and pretending Mason was not standing 10 feet away from me, leaning against the counter like he did not take up half the room without trying. Everyone was loud again. Noah was arguing with Jordan about the grill. Caleb had taken control of the speaker and kept playing old throwback songs nobody asked for. It should have been easy to disappear into the noise. That used to be my specialty. Then Noah looked between me and Mason and grinned. Man, this is wild. I forgot you two went to school together. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Mason looked down at his drink. Yeah. Remember when Mason used to mess with Ethan all the time? Noah laughed, not cruelly. That was the worst part. He said it like he was bringing up some harmless sitcom memory. Quiet boy Ethan. Dude, I forgot about that. The kitchen went light for half a second. A couple of the guys chuckled. Not because they hated me. Because to them, it was nothing. Old dumb high school stuff. I smiled automatically. That fake little smile people wear when they do not want to ruin the mood. Yeah, I muttered. Classic. Mason did not laugh. Not even a little. His fingers tightened around the neck of his bottle, and his whole face shifted. The easy version of him disappeared. He looked at Noah, then at me, and something uncomfortable passed through his eyes. Shame, maybe. Or regret. I hated that I noticed. Noah kept going, completely unaware. You were brutal, man. Remember the cafeteria thing? My stomach dropped. I remembered. Of course I remembered. Sophomore year. Milk carton. My sketchbook. A table full of people laughing while I stood there trying not to look like I cared. I set my plate down because suddenly the smell of food was too much. Mason pushed off the counter. Do not. The room went quieter. Noah blinked. What? Mason's voice stayed low, but it cut through everything. Do not bring that up like it was funny. Nobody moved for a second. Even the speaker seemed too loud now. Noah raised both hands, confused. I was just joking. Yeah. Mason glanced at me again, then away. That was the problem. My chest tightened so fast it almost hurt. I wanted to leave. I wanted to pretend I needed the bathroom or air or anything that got me out of that kitchen. But my legs did not move. Because Mason Reed, the same guy who used to make everyone laugh at my expense, had just shut down the joke before I could. And I did not know what to do with that. Jordan cleared his throat and started talking about the weather, too loud and too late. The conversation slowly picked back up, awkward around the edges. I grabbed my plate and walked toward the sink. My hands felt stupidly unsteady, so of course I knocked my cup over. Water spilled across the counter and right onto my sleeve. Great, I breathed. Before I could reach for paper towels, Mason was already there. Not rushing, not making a show of it, just quietly tearing off a few sheets and pressing them near my wrist, careful not to touch me at first. You okay? I stared at his hand. Big mistake. His fingers were close to mine, close enough that one small movement would make them brush again. It is just water. That is not what I meant. My throat went dry. The kitchen noise blurred behind us. Mason's eyes stayed on me, steady and too serious. For once, there was no smirk to hide behind. No audience. No joke. Just him, standing close enough to make me forget why I was angry for one dangerous second. I pulled my hand back. I am fine. He nodded like he did not believe me, but he let me go. That should have made me feel better. It did not. Because a few minutes later, when everyone started heading outside for firewood, Mason stopped beside me near the hallway and spoke so quietly I almost missed it. I was a jerk back then. My body went still. I did not turn around. I could not. He waited, like maybe he deserved the silence. Then he added, even softer, I know that does not fix anything. I stared at the dark hallway ahead of me, heart beating too hard for something I swore did not matter anymore. And the worst part was, I believed him. The storm hit right after everyone went outside for firewood. At first, it was just wind pushing through the trees and a few hard bits of snow tapping the windows. Then the whole sky seemed to drop at once. Jordan opened the back door, took one look at the driveway, and went, yeah, nobody is driving down that mountain tonight. Noah cheered like being trapped was part of the vacation package. Caleb started talking about horror movie rules. I just stood near the kitchen sink, watching white blur past the glass, trying not to think about the fact that I was stuck here. With Mason. For longer than planned. My phone had one bar, then none. Perfect. I grabbed my jacket from the chair and stepped onto the back porch before anyone could ask where I was going. The cold hit fast, sharp enough to make my eyes water. I told myself I needed air. That was true. Mostly. The porch light flickered above me, turning the snow into little flashes of white. I wrapped my arms around myself and stared out at the trees, breathing slowly, pretending my chest was not still tight from Mason's apology. The door opened behind me. I knew it was him before he spoke. You left this. Mason held out my thicker coat. I looked at it, then at him. I already have one. That one is not warm enough. You monitor everybody's coat situation now. A corner of his mouth lifted, but barely. Only people standing outside during a snowstorm like they are trying to prove a point. I wanted to roll my eyes. Instead, I took the coat. Our fingers touched around the sleeve. Not much. Just enough. This time, neither of us pulled away right away. My pulse jumped, stupid and obvious. Mason's gaze dropped to our hands, then came back to my face. For a second, the whole porch went quiet except for the wind. He could have made a joke. I almost wanted him to. A joke would have been easier to hate. But he just loosened his grip slowly, like he was giving me time to move first. I shoved the coat against my chest. Thanks. Ethan. My name again. Soft. Careful. Dangerous. I looked out at the snow instead of him. Do not. I have not said anything. You are about to. That made him go quiet. I could feel him beside me. Not too close, but close enough that the cold space between us felt measured. He leaned one shoulder against the porch post. You still hate me, do you not? The question landed harder than it should have. I let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. That is a pretty big question for a back porch. Yeah. His voice dropped. I know. I should have said yes. It would have been clean. Simple. Safe. Yes, I hate you. Yes, stay away from me. Yes, we can survive this weekend without pretending you suddenly care. But the word would not come out. Because hate did not explain the way my hand still felt warm where his had touched it. Hate did not explain why I noticed he looked cold too, standing there in just his hoodie. Acting like giving me the coat made sense. I do not know what I feel, I admitted, barely loud enough to hear myself. Mason looked at me then. Really looked. No smirk. No shield. Just something raw enough that I almost stepped back. That might be worse, he murmured. The door behind us suddenly creaked open. Noah's voice cut through the cold. Yo, are you two alive out here? Or are we interrupting a dramatic breakup? I moved first. Fast. Too fast. Mason looked away, jaw tightening as if he had been caught doing something he was not ready to name. Noah laughed, completely clueless, and held up a bag of marshmallows. We are making hot chocolate. Cabin law. Coming, I managed. My voice sounded normal. My heart did not. Mason waited for me to go in first. As I passed him, his sleeve brushed mine, and for one insane second, I wanted to stay outside. I wanted Noah to close the door. I wanted Mason to ask the question again when I was brave enough to answer it. Instead, I walked back into the warmth, coat clutched in both hands, telling myself the same lie I had been telling all night. It meant nothing. The problem was, I was starting to forget how to believe that. Hot chocolate should not have felt like a setup, but with this group, everything turned into one. Caleb had pushed the coffee table aside. Noah had found a deck of cards with 3 missing queens, and Jordan kept feeding the fire like he was personally responsible for keeping us alive. The snow outside had gotten worse, pressing white against the windows until the cabin felt smaller than before. I sat on the couch with both hands around a mug, trying to look normal. Mason sat in the armchair across from me. Not beside me. Across. Like after the porch, distance had suddenly become important again. I told myself that was good. Space was good. Space made sense. Then Noah flopped down beside me and nudged my knee with his. So, I looked at him. No, I have not even said anything. Your face did. He grinned. You and Mason were out there a while. My grip tightened around the mug. We were standing on a porch, Noah, during a snowstorm. That is usually where porches are. Outside. Caleb laughed from the floor. Leave him alone. Ethan gets weird when people notice things. My stomach dipped. Mason looked up from across the room. Just a quick glance, but I caught it. So did Jordan, apparently, because his eyebrows lifted a little. Great. Perfect. Now the cabin had witnesses. Noah leaned closer, lowering his voice badly. I am just saying, there was a vibe. There was frostbite. There was eye contact. I shot him a look. Stop. I meant it lightly. I hoped I did. But something in my voice must have come out sharper, because Noah's smile faded a little. Okay. Sorry. The room moved on, but not really. That was the thing about being noticed. Once somebody pointed a flashlight at you, you could still feel it even after they looked away. Mason got up a few minutes later to grab more firewood from the stack by the back door. Jordan followed him. I did not mean to listen. I really did not. But the cabin was old, and voices carried when people thought the fire was loud enough to cover them. You good? Jordan's voice was low. Mason did not answer right away. A piece of wood shifted. Yeah. You sure? Because you have been staring at Ethan like you owe him money. My whole body went still. The mug warmed my palms, but my fingers went cold. Mason exhaled quietly. Drop it. I am serious. Did something happen between you two? There was a pause. Too long. Long enough that my heart started beating in my throat. A lot happened before this weekend. Mason finally muttered. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting. I should have stopped listening. I should have made noise, stood up, done anything normal. Instead, I sat there frozen while the fire cracked and Caleb shuffled cards like my entire nervous system was not falling apart. Jordan's voice softened. Look, man, I remember high school. You were not exactly nice to him. Mason laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Yeah, I remember too. Then maybe do not make it weird now. That hit harder than I expected. Because weird. That was the word everyone used when something did not fit the version of you they understood. Weird if Mason cared. Weird if I softened. Weird if the guy who hurt me now looked at me like he wanted to fix something he could not reach. Mason came back with the firewood a second later, face closed off. He did not look at me. Not once. And somehow that felt louder than staring. Noah announced a game of truth or dare because apparently being trapped in a cabin had turned us all back into college freshmen. I tried to refuse, but Caleb threw a pillow at me. Come on, Brooks. 1 round. The question started dumb. Worst date. Most embarrassing drunk text. Who in the room would die first in a horror movie? Then Jordan looked at Mason, maybe still carrying that private conversation in his jaw, and tilted his beer bottle toward him. Truth. Why are you still single? Everyone made noise. Mason leaned back against the couch, eyes on the fire instead of any of us. Because I have bad timing. Noah whistled. That is suspiciously poetic. Mason's mouth twitched, but his eyes stayed serious. Maybe I keep liking people I should have treated better the first time. The room went quiet for half a beat. Not enough for anyone else to understand. More than enough for me. My chest tightened. I looked down at my mug like it had answers. It did not. When I finally glanced up, Mason was already watching me. No smile. No joke. Just that same careful look from the porch, like he had stepped too close to something honest and knew it. Then Caleb broke the silence with a loud, "Okay, that was weirdly deep." Somebody asked Noah something embarrassing. Everyone laughed. The pressure eased on the outside. Inside, it got worse. Because Mason looked away first. Not because he did not care. Because now everyone was paying attention. By midnight, the cabin had gone quiet in that strange way places do when everyone is tired but nobody wants to be the first to admit it. Caleb had passed out sideways on the couch with one sock half off. Noah and Jordan were still playing cards at the kitchen table, but their voices had dropped to lazy murmurs. The fire was low. The snow kept tapping the windows like it wanted in. I should have gone to bed. Instead, I stood in the kitchen rinsing mugs that did not need rinsing, just to have something to do with my hands. Mason came in behind me. I saw his reflection in the dark window above the sink before I heard him. He stopped near the island, not close enough to crowd me, not far enough to feel casual. "You heard Jordan earlier." My hand froze under the faucet. For 1 second, I considered lying. Then I turned the water off. A little. Mason nodded like he had expected that. His face looked tired in the dim kitchen light. Not sleepy. Tired in a deeper way, like the whole night had been pressing on him. He is not wrong. I dried my hands slowly. About what? Mason looked down, rubbing his thumb over the edge of the counter. About me making it weird. I hated how fast my chest tightened. You are not the only one making it weird. That made him look up. I regretted it immediately. Not because it was false. Because it was too honest. The kitchen went still around us. Noah laughed softly from the other room, then went quiet again. Mason's eyes stayed on mine, cautious, like he was afraid one wrong move would send me back behind whatever wall I had been hiding behind all weekend. "Ethan." My name came out almost like a question. I forced a breath. "Do not make me say something stupid." His mouth softened, not quite a smile. "I was going to ask if you wanted me to stop. That should have been easy." "Yes. Stop looking at me like that. Stop apologizing like you mean it. Stop being careful with me. Stop making the version of you in my head harder to hate." But the word did not come. Mason noticed. Of course he did. His hand shifted on the counter, closer to mine, still not touching. Just there. An option. A question without words. "I do not know what I am doing," he admitted, voice low. "With you." My pulse jumped. "That makes two of us." He let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh, but it shook a little. Mason Reed, actually shaken. I had no idea what to do with that. He looked toward the living room, making sure nobody was watching, then back at me. When Noah joked earlier, I wanted to walk away. "You did?" "Yeah." His jaw tightened. "Because I did not want them turning this into another joke. Not with you." Something in my chest went soft and scared at the same time. I looked down before he could see too much on my face. "This." Mason was quiet long enough that I heard the old refrigerator hum, the wind, the faint scrape of Jordan's chair in the other room. Then he moved his hand the last inch. His fingers touched mine. Lightly. Not grabbing. Not pushing. Just the backs of his fingers against mine on the counter. I could have moved away. I should have, maybe. I did not. His voice dropped even lower. "Whatever this is." My throat tightened. "You used to hate me." No, the answer came too fast. Too rough. His fingers stayed where they were, barely touching, but somehow it felt like the loudest thing in the room. "I did not know what to do with you." That is different. Not better. Just true. I finally looked at him. His eyes were tired and serious and too close to honest. "Mason, I did not want you to leave the porch earlier." The words came out before he could hide from them. Then he swallowed, like he had surprised himself. "And I do not want you to go back to acting like I am just some bad memory the second this storm ends." My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my hands, especially the one still touching his. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Jordan called from the living room. "Mason, you playing, or what?" Mason's eyes flicked away. The spell cracked, but not completely. He pulled his hand back slowly, like it cost him something. Yeah, he called, voice rough. Then, quieter, only for me. I was not joking. He left the kitchen before I could answer. I stood there staring at the counter, fingers still warm, realizing the worst possible thing. It was not just me anymore. The bedroom felt smaller after what happened in the kitchen. Not because anything had really happened. That was the problem. Nothing had happened, and somehow my fingers still remembered his. Mason went in first, carrying a folded blanket he had grabbed from the hallway closet. I followed a few steps behind, pretending I was checking my phone even though I still had no service. The screen was blank. Completely useless. Kind of like me. He set the blanket on the floor beside the bed. I will sleep down here. I looked at the thin rug, then at him. That is stupid. It is fine. It is freezing. I have slept in worse places. I did not know why that annoyed me. Maybe because he sounded too calm. Maybe because 5 minutes ago he had told me he was not joking, and now he was acting like distance was suddenly the responsible thing to do. So what? I dropped my phone on the nightstand. You say all that in the kitchen, then come in here and sleep on the floor? Mason's hand paused on the blanket. His shoulders lifted with a slow breath. I am trying not to make this harder for you. That should have been sweet. It was. A little. It also felt like being pushed away with good manners. I crossed my arms. Right. He turned then, eyes narrowing slightly. Do not do that. Do what? Act like I am backing out. My throat tightened, because that was exactly what I had thought, and I hated that he could still read me so easily. I looked toward the window, where snow kept sliding down the glass in soft streaks. You walked away. Jordan called me. You still walked away. Mason stared at me for a second. The lamp beside the bed put half his face in shadow, and for the first time all night, he looked frustrated. Not at me exactly. At himself. At the room. At the timing. Because there were 4 people 10 feet away from us. His voice stayed low, controlled, but barely. Because Noah already turned one look into a joke. Because Jordan basically warned me not to mess with you. And because the last thing I want is for you to feel cornered in the same cabin with me. The word cornered hit something old in me. My anger slipped, just a little. Mason saw it and softened too fast. That is what I meant. I swallowed. I do not need you to manage me. I know. I can decide what I feel. I know. Then stop acting like I am going to break if you stand too close. He went quiet. Too quiet. My own words hung there between us, bigger than I meant them to be. Outside the door, someone laughed in the living room. A chair scraped. Normal sounds from a normal room where nobody knew my chest was doing something stupid. Mason looked down at the blanket again, then back at me. I am not scared you will break. His voice was softer now. I am scared I will get one chance to do this right, and I will screw it up before you trust me. That shut me up. Completely. He let out a breath and sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he needed something to hold on to. He suddenly looked less like the guy who once owned every hallway and more like someone who had no idea where to put his guilt. You should be mad at me, he murmured. I was. Were. I hated the way he caught that. I looked away. Do not get excited. A small smile touched his mouth, then disappeared. Would not dream of it. The silence after that was not easy, but it was not sharp either. I sat on the other side of the bed, leaving a careful gap between us. The mattress dipped under my weight. Mason noticed. I noticed him noticing. For a second, neither of us moved. Then a loud thud came from the living room, followed by Noah yelling, I am fine. We both laughed under our breath at the same time. It was small, stupid, almost normal, and that scared me more than the tension did. Mason glanced over, his eyes catching mine a little too long. You can take the bed, he said quietly. I will stay on the floor. This time, it did not sound like rejection. It sounded like restraint. Still, something in my chest sank. Yeah, I whispered. Okay. He unfolded the blanket on the rug, and I turned off the lamp before he could see my face. In the dark, I told myself this was better, safer, cleaner. But when Mason shifted on the floor beside the bed, close enough that I could hear his breathing slow down, all I could think was that safe had never felt this lonely. I woke up before sunrise because Mason whispered my name in his sleep. At least, I thought he did. It was soft, barely there. A rough little sound from the floor beside the bed, mixed with the wind dragging against the cabin walls. My eyes opened to the dark room, and for a second I forgot where I was. Then I saw the shape of him on the rug, one arm tucked under his head, blanket pulled up to his shoulder, looking uncomfortable because he had chosen the floor like some kind of self-punishing idiot. My chest tightened. I stared at the ceiling and told myself to go back to sleep. I did not. 10 minutes passed. Maybe 20. The room had that blue-gray morning light that makes everything feel too honest. Mason shifted, then went still. You awake? My throat felt dry. No, a quiet breath. Almost a laugh. Right. Silence came back, but it was different now. Not empty. Waiting. I turned my head and found him looking up at me from the floor. His hair was messed up. His face was tired. He looked nothing like the guy from my memory. That made me angry for some reason. Or maybe sad. Why did you say my name? His eyes changed. Just a little. What? Last night. I swallowed. You said my name. Mason looked away toward the window. The room went too quiet. I did not know I did. So you were dreaming about me? I meant it as a joke. A defense. Something to make the moment smaller. It did not work. Mason looked back at me, and there was no smile on his face. Yeah. My heart stopped doing its job correctly. I sat up slowly, blanket sliding to my waist. Mason. I know. He pushed himself up on one elbow, then sat against the side of the bed, not close enough to touch me. Still too close to ignore. I know how that sounds. Then explain it. He rubbed both hands over his face, then let them fall. For once, he looked like he was done choosing the safest answer. I have been trying to act normal since I got here. You have a weird definition of normal. Ethan. My name came out low. Not sharp. Just enough to stop me. He looked at his hands. I saw you get out of Noah's car yesterday, and I panicked. I stared at him. You panicked? Yeah. His mouth pulled tight. Because I knew I owed you an apology. A real one. And because I knew that was not the only reason seeing you messed me up. The room seemed to shrink around us. I could hear the heater clicking somewhere in the wall. My own breathing. His. What does that mean? Mason looked up then. Straight at me. No hallway version. No group version. No almost brave porch version. Just him. It means I did not just feel guilty when I saw you. My fingers curled into the blanket. Do not say something you will take back. I am not. You do not get to make this confusing because you feel bad. I know. You hurt me. His face tightened. I know. No, Mason. You do not get to just know it. My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated it. I hated that after all these years, there was still something in me that sounded young around him. He moved like he wanted to stand, then stopped himself. His hands stayed open on his knees. Careful. Still giving me space. Then tell me. I laughed once, quiet and bitter. Tell you what. What I did. My chest went tight. Why? Because I should have to hear it. That broke something small in me. Not everything. Just enough. I looked at him, really looked, and said, You made me feel like being noticed was dangerous. Mason closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, they were wet, but he did not look away. I am sorry. The words were simple. No excuse attached. No speech. Just sorry. And somehow that made it harder. I looked down before my face gave me away. I do not know what to do with you being nice now. I am not asking you to forgive me this morning. His voice was rough. I am asking you to stop pretending nothing is happening. My heart hit hard. Once. Twice. And what is happening? Mason stood slowly, then sat on the edge of the bed, leaving a careful space between us. His hand rested on the blanket between us, not touching mine, close enough that I could decide. I like you, he said quietly, and I know I have no right to. But I do. The silence after that felt huge. I stared at his hand, then at his face. Every smart part of me said to move away. Every scared part agreed. But my hand shifted anyway, just an inch, until my fingers touched his. Mason went still, completely still, like even breathing too hard might ruin it. I did not hold his hand. Not exactly. I just let my fingers stay there. I am still mad at you, I whispered. His thumb moved once, barely brushing mine. Okay. I am still scared this is going to make me stupid. Okay. And I do not trust you yet. Mason nodded, eyes staying on mine. Then I will earn it slow. Outside the room, someone knocked on the door hard enough to make us both flinch. Noah's voice came through, muffled and way too awake. Road update. Also, if you two killed each other, I am not cleaning it up. I pulled my hand back fast. Mason looked at the door, then at me. For half a second, we almost laughed. Almost. But the room had changed. We both knew it. Nothing was fixed. Not really. But the pretending was over. By the time Noah finished banging on the door, my hand was already back in my lap, like that could undo anything. Mason stood first. Of course he did. He opened the door just enough to give Noah a look. Nobody is dead. Noah leaned sideways, trying to see past him. That sounds exactly like what a murderer would say. Road update. Mason did not move. Noah finally gave up and lifted his phone. County posted the plows are coming through by noon. So congratulations, everybody gets to rejoin civilization. My stomach did something strange. Relief, maybe. Or panic. Because as long as we were trapped in the cabin, whatever was happening between me and Mason had an excuse. Snow. No signal. One room. Too much quiet. But once the road opened, we would have to carry it somewhere real. Mason glanced back at me, like he had the same thought. He did not say it. He did not have to. The morning turned into a mess of half-packed bags, burnt toast, wet boots, and everyone pretending they had not been scared of getting stuck forever. I kept waiting for Mason to pull away, to turn normal again, to become the version of him everyone else expected. He did not. He gave me space, but not distance. There was a difference. When I reached for my duffel, he grabbed it first and set it by the door without making a big thing out of it. When Noah tried to joke about us surviving the honeymoon suite, Mason just looked at him and said, "Enough." Not angry, not dramatic, just clear. Noah blinked, then nodded. Yeah, my bad. That should not have mattered as much as it did. But it did, because Mason did not make me carry the awkwardness alone. Around noon, the plow finally cleared the road, and everyone started loading the cars. The air outside was bright and freezing, the kind of cold that makes every breath show up before disappearing. I stood near Noah's car, watching Mason zip his jacket, wondering if this was the part where everything got weird again. He walked over slowly, boots crunching in the snow. "Can I talk to you for a second?" My heart kicked. Yeah. We moved a few feet away, near the edge of the trees. Not hidden, exactly. Just not in the middle of everyone. Mason shoved his hands into his pockets, then seemed to change his mind and took them out again. Nervous. Actually nervous. I meant what I said. I looked at him. About earning it slow? He nodded. All of it. I do not want this to be some cabin thing we both pretend did not happen. The old instinct came back. Make a joke. Step away. Shrug like it was nothing. I almost did. Then I remembered his hand staying still on the blanket, waiting for me to choose. I remembered him telling Noah enough. I remembered the way he said sorry without asking me to make him feel better. So I took a breath. I do not know what this is yet. That is okay. I am not going to magically be over everything. I know. His voice was steady, but his eyes were not. That made it easier to be honest. But I do not want to pretend nothing happened either. Mason's face changed so slightly most people would have missed it. I did not. His shoulders loosened. His mouth softened, like he had been bracing for impact and got handed a chance instead. "Can I text you when we get back?" I looked down, smiling before I could stop myself. "You still have my number?" "Yeah." A small pause. I never deleted it. That hit me somewhere quiet. Not in a big movie way. In a stupid, simple, human way. I shook my head once, trying not to look too affected. "You can text me." Mason's smile was careful, almost disbelieving. "Okay." Noah honked the horn. "Ethan, unless you are adopting a tree, let us go." I rolled my eyes, but when I turned back, Mason was still watching me. The space between us felt different now. Not solved. Not easy. But open. I held out my hand. Not for a handshake. Not really. Just a small choice in the cold air between us. Mason looked at it for half a second, then took it. Warm fingers. Gentle grip. No pulling. No showing off. And this time, when Noah definitely saw us from the car, I did not let go. Mason did not either. We stood there like that for maybe 3 seconds. Maybe less. Long enough. Then I stepped back, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the car. Before I got in, I looked over my shoulder. Mason was still there by the trees, smiling like he was trying not to. For once, I did not look away. I used to think being noticed by him was dangerous. Maybe it had been. Back then. But as Noah started the car and the cabin disappeared behind us, my phone buzzed in my pocket. One message from Mason. "Drive safe, Ethan." I stared at it until my chest warmed in a way the cabin never could. Then I typed back, "You too." And for the first time all weekend, I believed we were not leaving everything behind. We were taking the beginning with us.